the live dance. And hello, everybody. I am HP Holo / Edie Skye. He is Jacob Holo, and together we write fun, weird sci-fi and fantasy. We also get together every month or so to talk about our books, and today we are here to talk about Blood Knight 3, which just came out this week, last week. I don't even know when.
It came out this week.
Anyway,
it came out 2 days ago.
Do what?
2 days ago.
2 days ago. Oh yeah. See, my sense of time is completely messed up this year, you guys, because we've released so many things. Because you had Freelancers of Neptune come out earlier this month too, and it's just like, oh my gosh. Anyway, so before we get started though, how you doing, Jacob? What exciting things have been happening in our life since last time?
You mean about the ablation?
Well, I guess there's that. I mean, on my end, I saw like 4 kittens playing on our back porch today. So, I mean, it's already a good day. But
well, I've been playing a lot of Helldivers too with a group of really good buddies who are all authors. So yes, that's pretty cool.
We need to start streaming that. I know we say every single time we do a stream, we're going to stream that. But yeah, so you have had another step in your chronic pain adventure that we hope will work out. So
well, we'll see. I'm a few days after the my nerve ablation, so we'll see how everything shakes out. The doctor said to give it about 2 weeks before we kind of fully evaluate how effectively it's been helping my chronic pain and decide next steps from there. So
yeah, you already sound like you've been doing better though. Like your morale has been higher, and you finished editing another book this week. Like that's exciting.
Yes.
So yeah, our week has been nuts, you guys, because we released this book. Jacob finished the first draft of Blood Knight 4 and finished editing it in like 3 days. And so
no,
I mean, even
it took me a week.
It took you, but it's super fast though. And so like even when Jacob is suffering from chronic pain, he's a machine. What else has happened this week? Well, I'm reading through Blood Knight 4, so there's that. And I also am making good progress on Monster Girl Tamer 2. So there's that. And oh, Richie's in the chat. And he says, now here is a duo I adore. We adore you too, Richie. Welcome to the chat. So, all right, let's see here. So we have talked about our first little round of random things. I actually, before we talk about the book, I actually decided to add a new feature to this show. So for those of you who follow me on Facebook, you know, I have become like mildly Facebook famous for my grilled cheese posts. So we are now adding a grilled cheese of the month to this thing. And I have a blog feature.
I can't believe we're doing this.
Yeah, I can. Oh, Richie says, Jacob isn't just a machine. He is the machine. You are, man. Like there are some times when you write so fast, I'm not even sure you're completely human. Like it's crazy. But anyway, we're going to start doing grilled cheese of the month. And so on our blog, I used to run a little series of recipes called Recipes on Top. And the recipes are on top, so you don't have to scroll through a million years of my life story to actually get to the good part. And so our first grilled cheese of the month is actually in honor of Jacob because I made this one for you. And I'm about to link it. It is the dill pickle grilled cheese.
It's so good.
Oh, yeah. And
it's so good.
The story behind the grilled cheese post is I really like grilled cheese, but I also just like to put random things on grilled cheese. And one day we had to get rid of a bunch of dill pickles because like there was this much left in the jar and I didn't want it junking up the fridge. So I just sauteed some dill pickles and put them on a sandwich for Jacob. And I didn't think it was actually going to be that good, but now it's kind of a regular thing you ask me to make. So if you guys...
I do. It adds a nice bit of, I don't know, like just an interesting flavor, edge of, you know, unique flavor to it.
It really does.
I mean, the pickles and the cheese really complement each other very well.
Yeah, I didn't expect to like it, but there's the tang of the cheddar cheese, and then there's I don't know how to describe pickle. There's the pickleness of the pickle. They just go well together. And so if you would like to experience this grilled cheese, I have linked the blog post in our comments and in the show notes. So go make your own. It's great. Now, before we start the book, our usual stuff, we are giving away a free signed copy of Blood Knight 3. And I'm putting that in the chat. If you want to enter to win a copy of this thing, go do that. We also, for those who are veterans or teachers or first responders or librarians, you guys get extra entries into the contest. So whenever you fill out the form, just check which one of those things you are. And also, if you don't feel like waiting to see if you won the book, then you can just go over to Amazon and buy your copy there. So now, let's talk about this book. All right. So, book 3 in the Blood Knight series. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, this is an Edie Skye book, but Jacob and I, the pen name is, it was somewhat collaborative on Titan Mage, because you wrote the Titan Mage outlines, and then I did the principal writing on Titan Mage. But Blood Knight, I had a little bit of input into the world and what goes on, but this has been primarily you. So Jacob, give us a short description of the Blood Knight series, and then tell us what book 3 is about.
All right. So Blood Knight is an urban fantasy harem series. Features J.B. Clarke, who is the titular Blood Knight. And so he is descended from basically the greatest line of vampire hunters the world has ever seen. And the Blood Knights are pretty close to being extinct. And the vampires secretly rule the world. And they do so via some very powerful, very widespread mental control magic that essentially keeps the general populace, humans for the most part, sedate and unawares of the occult that is around them. And there's a lot of occult around them that they are just completely unaware of. There are a lot of demi-human species. There are various different factions of mages, and there are a lot of different monsters that are in the dark corners of the world that your regular human being is simply not aware of. And when he or she encounters it, the spells sort of make them see what they expect to see. Mm-hmm. And so by making humanity docile in this manner, the vampires can more effectively prey on humanity. And Clarke wants to put an end to this in a very final way. It's a bit of an uphill climb.
Just a little
given that he's just a 20-year-old college student, and he's got his in the first book he kind of gathers his harem of monster girls. So a succubus, a werewolf, a slime girl, an angel who is kind of sort of a part of it, not officially a part of it, but is sort of a part of it as well. And then we have the witch Ixia, who joins the harem in book 2. And so you have this group of, for the most part, college-age students out to basically free humanity from the magical shackles that the vampires have placed on them. And there are tens of thousands of vampires in the world, and there's just 5 of them. Mm-hmm. So how are they going to do it? Well, there is a way. And as the series has been progressing, there are more and more hints getting dropped onto how this is actually going to shake out, and how our heroes are actually going to be able to pull this off. Because, well, yes, there is going to be a happy ending in book 5. Sorry, spoilers, but it's a harem series. The hero is going to win. I mean, he is going to get the girls, and he is going to win. I mean, it's more a question of how he does it.
Now book 3 is a significant step up, though, from the first two books, because book one, you know, he's still feeling out the world.
Yeah.
Book two, he gets a little bit more solid, gathers his power a little bit.
Well,
and I distinctly remember when I sat down to read the first draft of book three, I finished the prologue and I was like, oh, the stakes are being raised here. They're in like legit trouble now.
and I mean, it's the curve is ramping up.
Oh yeah.
Because as you mentioned, book one is essentially it's Clarke's introduction to the world, and you know the reader is learning about the world with him. In book two, you know, the vampire slaying group that these characters have formed, Broken Fang, you know, they've just had their first victory, though it was a nail biter, and now they're kind of getting a firmer foothold on the situation. They're reaching out to other groups. They're establishing alliances. They're kind of building successes, building reputation. And they've also, you know, by the end of book two, they've acquired the Scepter of Bone, which is a magical artifact. They know it's important.
They're not entirely sure
but
why.
they're not really entirely sure what this thing is for, other than a lot of really powerful vampires have been interested in it.
And that's another significant subplot. Like, yeah, they got to defeat the vampires, but also the vampires are after this nebulous something that they can't quite figure out, and they slowly have to figure that out too.
Well, and it's hinted at, you know, what the vampires are after within the city of Chester Creek is hinted at in book one, and then you actually have it name dropped in book two, which is the portal of gold, that certain individuals are aware of. No one seems to know exactly what it is. All they know is that, okay, this is a way to obtain just massive amounts of power. And so, of course, the vampires, being who they are, they want it very, very much.
All right. So I want to talk about the way in which the stakes get raised. In
yes.
In the prologue, you're introduced to two new characters. There's Lady Irem and there's Dorian Allant, who is a D hunter.
Yes.
And associated with the Academy of Silence. Now, there have been D hunters in the Academy of Silence have been referenced in previous books, but this is really the first time they've been explored. So tell us a bit about both of those things.
All right. So the D hunters, the deviant hunters, and yes, that is a deliberate joke. You know, kind of a riff on Vampire Hunter D. So the D hunters are essentially the vampires' elite enforcers. If there's a problem with, say, one of the mage clans, or some of the demi-humans are getting uppity, the D hunters are sent in and they resolve the situation. And this resolution generally involves a lot of bloodshed. The D hunters are feared within the demi-human community, and rightfully so. They are, all of them, pure blood vampires. So there are two tiers of vampires in this setting. There are Risen, and then there are the pure bloods. And so you're dealing with, often vampires that are hundreds of years old. They have been trained and equipped very well to deal with high-end magical threats, such as mages and blood knights. They are badasses. And so, but Clarke is also a badass at this point. And in effect, this book is sort of structured as a mirror match. In that Clarke is, to a certain degree, up against a dark reflection of who he is as a Blood Knight. So Dorian Allant, he is the D hunter that the Academy of Silence sends in. So the Academy of Silence is essentially the base fortress school kind of combination for the D hunters. And He's been sent in. He has been sent in at the request of Lady Illustrious Tenebris Irem, Wrath of the Glorious Darkness. I had fun with that name.
Yes.
So Lady Irem is a very mysterious, manipulative individual who is kind of a power broker of sorts within the city of Chester Creek. She operates from the shadows, and she is aware of the vampires that are turning up dead, and this is a disruptive element to what she views as her city, and she wants this problem solved. So Lady Irem is not a vampire, and this is made clear in the prologue, or at least hinted at fairly substantially. But she is allied with the vampires. And so Dorian Lant comes in, and he basically has the task of finding out what happened to these vampires and resolving the problem in typical D Hunter fashion, which, as I referred to earlier, generally involves a lot of bloodshed.
Yes. He's such a great bad guy because he is absolutely like a vicious dickhead, but he's so fun to read. Like he's very much a love to hate villain. It's like, no, I would not want to encounter this man anywhere, but it's really entertaining to just read him going about doing these crappy things.
He is a badass, and he is a bad person.
Yes, bad in all the ways.
Yes, the reader is not meant to like him. That is not the intended effect that we're going for here.
Now we've also got 3 new monster girls in this one. Now they don't join the harem, but so basically,
or do they?
Huh? I'm trying not to give away spoilers, Jacob. But anyway, so the situation here is that earlier in the series, Clarke and company killed off 3 vampires, and new people have come in to fill their places. And one of the conflicts is like, who are these people? Are they filling these vampire spaces for reasons, or are they just people who happen to have like innocently filled these spaces? And so, hey, JR's in the chat. Woo! And so tell us a bit about this dragonkin and yuki-onna. And I'm so mired in book 4 right now, I completely forgot what the other one was. An elf. So
all right,
my brain is thinking about book 3 and book 4 at the same time, and I'm trying not to give away book 4 stuff.
So there are 3 new demi-humans that show up. So we have an elf librarian who takes over for the former head librarian Plainsboro, who was killed in book 1, beheaded by Clarke. There's a yuki-onna, a Japanese snow lady, who takes over for Heinrich, who was killed in book 1 by Clarke. I'm noticing a theme here. And then there is a bronze dragonkin, and she has taken over for Roast, the former head coach, and he was killed by Clarke in book 1.
Rest in peace. Or don't, they were buttholes.
Yeah, I mean, all three of those characters were vampires, and then now we have new mysterious characters that have all taken over their positions at the same time, and so the timing is like a little bit suspect. And what our heroes discover fairly early on is that these 3 demi-humans, they are also searching for the Portal of Gold. And they are interested in establishing an alliance with our main characters. Is this a genuine offer? Or are they more trouble than they're worth? Is there some sort of ulterior motive going on here? Well,
you got to read to find out.
Yeah. I guess that's the short version of where I was going with that sentence or series of sentences.
Now here's a question. Okay, dragonkin are cool, elves are cool. Yuki-onna is a type of demi-human that you don't really read about all that often. So what led you to choose those particular types?
Well, one of the things that I was trying to do, and you see some of it in the main cast, is that there's a mixture of more traditional sort of, monstrous human types, like Brooke, werewolf, well, that's just, pretty bog standard for, werewolves and vampires. I mean, anyone who's seen, like, what is it, the Underworld series? Is that?
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, they're antagonistic toward each other in just about every series that features both of them. So,
and you've got elves and orcs and witches and wizards and various different stuff like that. But also in some places wanted to sort of stretch out to less traveled territory, which is where you have Sammy, slime girl. And I don't think you see many slime girls in urban fantasy.
At least not in mainstream, definitely.
And so that's sort of some of what was I wanted to explore by introducing the three new ladies in this one. It is to we've got some that's pretty familiar. Okay, a wood elf. All right. And dragonkin. But yuki-onna. All right. Well, you don't see many of those in fiction, at least not in the fiction that I've read. And so I found it interesting to say, okay, well, do some reading about what the mythology says that a yuki-onna can do, and then incorporating that into her powers, and just doing some stuff from there and having some fun with the concept.
I love the way you characterized her too, because it's like, I know it was an easy characterization to make the cold Yuki-onna have a cold personality, but I know college professors who are as terrifying as she is, and so it's like it's a fully relatable characterization. She's one of my favorites of those new three characters. She's again not someone I would really enjoy being around, but I know that character type so well that she comes across really well.
It was low-hanging fruit. So it's like, snow lady, cold personality, pluck.
Yes. All right. Now, each of the Blood Knight books focuses on a different character. Like, they're still ensemble casts, but effectively, book 1 was kind of mainly Emma. Book 2 was mainly Ixia. Book 3 is the Sammy book. Yes. And so let's talk a bit about Sammy's storyline, because people already have emotions about Sammy.
Yes.
And so you're gonna have more emotions about Sammy in this one.
Oh, if you've had emotions about Sammy from book 1 to book 2, well, buckle up. There are more emotions that will happen in book 3.
Give the Cliff's Notes version of what happened with Sammy earlier, so people have context if this is the first time they're coming into the series.
So Sammy was born to human parents, and her traits as a demi-human slime manifested in her teens. And because of the spells, she didn't know what was going on. Her parents didn't know what was going on. No one around her knew what was going on. And part of this is also, initially they're like, okay, she's got some sort of like, degenerative bone disease. She's breaking her bones all the time. None of them really knew what was going on. But the added issue is that she's toxic, like literally, like
Yeah, like
touching
literally.
her can make a person, deathly ill. Which
And we're not talking like just feels bad in bed. We're talking like explosive stuff coming out of both ends. it's not pleasant. And she uses it to her advantage, though. It's a good battle tactic.
And fortunately, for her and for Clarke, Clarke has absorbed some of her resistances and is essentially immune to this. So he can touch her,
Mm-hmm.
which she enjoys to great effect. But because she didn't know what was going on with her body, she nearly killed her father, nearly poisoned him to death. And this is one of the reasons why she hates vampires and why she is extremely loyal to Clarke and to his mission. One of the reasons.
Because if her parents aren't aware of the demi-human world and the vampire world, then there's no way they can conceive of what's wrong with her.
And it's also, well, it's not just what happened to her, but it's also the concept of that this is happening to other boys and girls.
Right.
Other people are suffering like she suffered. And she doesn't want to just stand around and do nothing. So that's one of the reasons why she is absolutely in this fight. So she's got some baggage. She also, because of her nature, she is, of the monster girls, she is the most monstrous. She is the least humanoid. I mean, she can literally, sleep in a gelatinous form in a bathtub.
It sounds so relaxing. Like every single time I read those scenes where she's just goo in the bathtub, it's like that is a state I would love to occupy, like being that relaxed.
So she has she has, she has some self-doubt. She has some hang-ups about herself. And this is, related to her monstrous nature and to her own perception of herself as a monster rather than as a human being. And she also has the fact that, she, besides Clarke at this point, she can't touch other people. And so these things kind of, combine to make life, it's, she's
life is complex.
Yeah. She has a bunch of hangups. And fortunately,
we've got Evan in the chat. He says howdy. Hey, Evan.
Fortunately, Clarke is able to help her with these. And so she's got some issue, like one of the issues that has been hinted at is that Clarke can perceive her magical aura, particularly when they're very close. And so he can perceive that, hey, there is something off here. There's and this has been hinted at in books 1 and 2. And so there's something going on with her on a kind of physical, magical level that isn't quite right. And this may get resolved in book 3.
But she's got some other challenges in book 3 as well, which is that
her parents are human, and
they learn that she is part of a harem, and
they
don't understand the context. And from the outside looking in, it does not look good to them. And so that is something she has to deal with as well. It's like, how do you explain to your human parents that you're part of this, that you've joined up with this blood knight and these other women, and you're doing some personal stuff because that's what he needs to help save the world from the vampires they don't know exist, And so it's like, how do you deal with that? I mean, there's absolutely supernatural vampiric threats in this novel, but there's also very much a very personal storyline beneath it, because they've, even while they're doing all these things, they've still got to deal with life. And Sammy especially has to
Yes.
deal with it, because she is very much of the characters, she's very much the most alone, because Brooke has her whole pack, Emma has her parents, Ashley is alone, but in a different kind of way.
Ashley is just off in her own category.
Yeah, Ashley is very much her own category. And then Ixia has her mother and sisters, and so it's for I feel like for Sammy, it's I don't think we intentionally wrote this as a found family story, but for some of the characters, it very much is the story of finding another family that you can actually interact with in a meaningful way. Not that she doesn't love her parents, but it has an effect on your relationship when you physically not hug the people close to you.
I mean, it's made clear that Sammy loves her parents, and her parents love her, but because her parents are human and she isn't, that essentially recessive traits in her parents kind of combine to magically and physically to make her.
Mm-hmm.
That she, she's aware of the occult and they are not. There is this barrier between them, and there's really no good way to bridge it.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though both sides love each other dearly, they don't understand each other, and they can't really understand each other as things are, at the outset.
Mm-hmm. All right. Oh, we've got a good question from JR here, and says, how much does your narrator hate you for some of these hard to pronounce names?
I have not received any hate mail.
We've received some funny bloopers though, and I'm trying to find my audio file for
the Nachtperscher.
Oh yes, because that opened up the internet. That was not what I intended to open. I'm gonna look for it while we chat, but yeah, occasionally. So our audiobooks are released by Royal Guard Publishing, and they're voiced by Jess Trepanier and Daryl Mayfield. And hold it, there's stop doing stuff, computer. My computer's trying to open Dragon. And they do a magnificent job. They don't always record together though. A lot of times they'll record separately and then just merge everything. But occasionally when they do record together, we get these really, really spectacular bloopers from it. And I've gotten at least 2 really good ones. And JR asks, can you share these bloopers? Is that allowed? Yes, I can share them. They're currently, I have them on the Patreon right now, and I'm trying to figure out where I put the files so I can potentially play them on here, because they're just, oh my gosh, they're spectacular. But yeah, whenever we record the audiobooks, before they start recording, I send both the manuscript and I send a character and pronunciation guide. And so there's, especially like we write fantasy, there's crazy names in everything we write. And so I like to streamline the process as much as I can for our narrators, and narrating is a lot of work, and I try to make it as little work for them as possible by offering up all these things. And so yeah, but yeah, JR, I'm going to look up the bloopers. If I don't find them during this stream, then I will definitely post them either on the website or somewhere. So yeah. All right, let's see. Did you have a favorite scene or a favorite part that you enjoyed writing the most, Jacob?
Yes, but it's such a spoiler scene.
Do you have one that is not spoilery?
I can't. That particular what happens in that series of scenes, I want readers to encounter it for themselves.
Okay, well let's change the question then. Do you have a particular monster that you particularly enjoyed coming up with for this one?
Some of those are spoilers too. Oh my
God.
Man. Yeah. I mean, yes. but honestly, the monster designs are they're pretty spoiler heavy.
No, man. Okay, I found my files. I just need to figure out if I can share them from the browser. Let's see here. Okay. What is happening? Okay. I can share my entire screen. So let's see. Oh, JR says, what was the beverage of choice for Heather when she writes this series? I don't do much writing on this series. I primarily do the editing. But at any given time in my life, I always have an iced coffee on hand or a very caffeinated protein drink. And all right, let's see here. Okay, so I have bloopers up. So
you should be able to share it.
Yeah. And all right. I got to switch between some things here. So, all right. It says I'm sharing my entire screen. And all right. Wow, that's like that's Windows within Windows. Good Lord. All right. What do you guys see on your end now?
Yeah, I see it.
See it? Okay.
Fire away.
Do what?
Hit play. It should work.
Okay.
Heinrich thrashed on the ground, stuck on the sword, blood pooling underneath the wound.
Can you hear it?
He spat at them and swore, but the rest of his words were garbled by the blood gushing out of his mouth. He let out one last gurgling exhale and, finally, lay still. The giant sword vanished into a twinkling rain. I'm sorry, I didn't read this before. I didn't read this before.
I understand. I just got to that part.
I fucking love Edie's books so much.
She has a good knack for humor.
She does. She writes some really funny shit. Okay. All right. The giant sword vanished into a twinkling rain, and then the corpse shat itself.
I assume it came through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
all right.
I heard it.
All right, we got number 2.
Chat says that
yes.
We got some yeses in
my
chat.
favorite one is the next one. All right, are you guys ready? Here we go.
I am pureblood, born over 200 years ago. In my homeland, they called me, oh shit, what the hell is that word?
It was the immediate switch off for me. Knocked Pershire? Let me Google.
I think you can stop it there.
NACTPIR.
Okay, yeah.
SCHER.
It's short. It's got like 10 seconds left.
The first link is r/scary stories on Reddit.
Oh boy.
I just need the pronunciation.
Okay, yeah, that's it.
I.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I restarted. Okay, there we go. And yeah, so excellent bloopers. I really wish they recorded more often so we could get more of these. But oh my gosh, those two! I can't recall how many times we listened to the second one in particular, just because it's the automatic switch from narrative.
Yeah, he from this very thick German accent. He just switches off. It just flips a switch, and it's like.
Oh, we got Howard in the chat. Howard says, good evening, Dazzle servitors. Good evening, Howard. Welcome to the show. All right. So we are getting close to wrap-up time. So is there anything you want to add about the book before we do our usual, here's other stuff that's going on?
No. I think we've covered, the highlights.
All right. And again, if you guys in the chat have any questions, feel free to put them in there. For now, let's see here. What's on my list of stuff to talk about now? Okay, so a few little book updates. And I think Richie actually mentioned this earlier. Book 2, Blood Knight Book 2, finally came out on audio. All of our audio releases have been off a little bit this year because my goal when we started this year was to have simultaneous releases for both audiobooks and ebooks. And then everything, we had an okay January, and then everything went nuts in February. And I think Monster Girl Tamer, I finished the week before the ebook release. So naturally, it did not get to Royal Guard early. And as a result, that has pushed all of our audiobook releases out because we have the same 2 people do all of our audiobooks because they're great. But about to put it in the chat, book 2 is now out on Audible. And Jacob, you have been listening to it, and it has been so amusing to hear you just listen to this audiobook. I have not heard you. I've not listened to it yet, but I've spent all week just hearing Jacob giggle from whatever room he's in, just these spontaneous giggles, and it's great. So do you have any particular scenes in book 2 that have made you like absolutely laugh? By the way, the link is in the chat.
In my opinion, it's a fun book, but it's also, Jess and Daryl perform it very, very well. There are a lot of, pardon me, a lot of different voices that they have to do. I think Daryl has a bit more work in this one because there weren't all that many male voices. It was mostly Clarke and the ladies.
Male cast in this one.
and a villain or 2 in book 1, but in book 2, Daryl gets to play around with some more voices, but also Jess. There's the whole witches coven, and there's the book 2 audiobook is very well performed. It's really fun listen.
There was I want to say like 2 nights ago, we were both sitting in bed and just trading off scenes from our various audiobooks, because you had me listen to a scene from Blood Knight 2, and I am in
the Billy Quigley scene.
Oh my gosh, the Billy Quigley scene is a piece of art, you guys. I love Billy Quigley as a character to begin with, but Jess just elevates the character. Like the audiobook versions of all of our books are my preferred versions because they do such a good job on them. And in fact, right now, I'm listening to Monster Girl Tamer as a way, and Monster Girl Tamer 1 as a way to sort of get myself in the proper vibe to work on Monster Girl Tamer 2. And oh my gosh, the voicing for Pepper in particular. I haven't met Tomoe yet. I just got to the point in the audiobook where they've met Pepper, but she sounds like a slightly more feral Jinx from League of Legends and Arcane, and it is such a perfect voice for Pepper's character. And the scene in particular after the giant robot fight in Monster Girl Tamer is just spectacular. I want to say I've listened to it 3 times to get myself in the proper mood to write Pepper. It's one thing I really, really like about these audiobook adaptations is that I can be having a mediocre writing day and my brain just won't be flowing, but I can listen to how Daryl and Jess voiced my characters, and it makes me want to write more in my own worlds. And that's a really great experience to have as an author. We've got a question from J.R. Handley that asks, how's your hand doing, Jacob? Because you had some carpal tunnel junk going on a while back.
The hands are doing well. I had some of the tendons here in my left thumb were starting to act up again, but that seems to have gotten sorted out. I got some stretches and whatnot that I do for my hands, and that seems to have helped. And the carpal tunnel, the surgery there seems to have solved that more or less permanently.
Yeah. Now if we can just get your nerve pain figured out.
Yeah. If it isn't one thing, it's another.
Gamora12 actually has a good question in the chat. By the way, welcome to the chat, Gamora12. So Jacob has said before that he wrote Blood Knight as a form of stress-free writing compared to his hard sci-fi books. Is Jacob open to writing a hard sci-fi harem series in the future? One thing I want to say before you answer that, because I kind of suspect what I know your answer is going to be, is first off, one of the exciting things that happened this month is that his latest hard sci-fi book, Freelancers of Neptune, released, and it hit number 40 on the sci-fi new releases bestseller list. And so thank you to everyone who bought, because I honestly was not expecting that to happen. It's like, I know we market well and whatnot, but traditional publishing is like a whole other level compared to indie publishing. And it's got a whole other set of marketing rules and whatnot. And so his latest hard sci-fi was a success by our standards. And so that's super cool. But now, Jacob, would you be open to writing a hard sci-fi harem series?
Yes.
That is? That you did not take that bait like I expected you to.
No, I was. That was a little bit of a tease. I'm messing with you a little bit here, but so yeah, the freelancers of Neptune is so the series is called Soul Blazers, SOL, Soul Blazers, and it's. There are a lot of different types of stories that can be told in this setting, and it was designed that way, that it's a very flexible sci-fi setting. And could there be, for example, a harem series featuring a bunch of cat girls from outer space?
Possibly.
that I have totally not contemplated at all before this.
The thing about writing hard sci-fi harem, though, is that like hard sci-fi is a challenging write, but hard sci-fi harem is just fun. And that's like it is so much easier to crank out harem novels than it is traditional hard sci-fi. And they're very relaxing novels to write. In general, as a genre. I mean, you can of course have your really complicated ones, but I've written, before I started writing harem, I wrote non-harem, and depending upon what level you're writing to, it can be challenging and exhausting. But since I've started writing harem novels, I have never ended my writing day tired. I've always ended it maybe a little bit tired, because I generally write by hand, and my hand gets tired. But I'm always eager to start writing the next day with harem. And that's a really fun thing about it. Oh, John Aldridge is in the comments and says, hard sci-fi harem.
Well, I mean, to speak seriously about, the hard sci-fi aspect, in Soul Blazers, the hard science is kind of tucked into the background. As far as I know, in Freelancers, I don't break the laws of physics once, even though a lot of crazy, cool stuff happens in it. But
it's hard sci-fi for people who want to have fun when they read versus hard sci-fi for people who like numbers.
Yeah, there's it's there are. Yeah, the numbers are like beneath the surface, and then it's like, okay, I've done my homework in terms of the design, in terms of how the mechanics of the world work, but here's a fun adventure built on top of it. And if I were theoretically to write a harem series that was hard sci-fi, it would probably be set in the Soul Blazer setting, just because of how flexible that setting is, and that well, I already have it designed and I already enjoy writing in it.
It's very much it's a setting that feels like an anything goes setting, even though it has its own distinct rules. And yeah, John Aldridge has a good comment. He says, sci-fi is difficult. You're trying to tell the story in a realistic manner, but not everyone has a PhD in insert relevant science here. That's very true about a lot of sci-fi. Like there's I love sci-fi, but there's a lot of sci-fi that I just skim like to get back to the plot. And I know that there are, of course, sci-fi readers who enjoy that level of detail. I'm not one of those readers. I really enjoy authors who can take really, really nebulous, complicated concepts and render them so that people who are very casual science people like me can understand them.
But in terms of my writing slate, the next thing is Blood Knight 5, so that we have a complete series. Then I need to swing over to to David Weber's Honorverse.
Speaking of hard sci-fi.
So very demanding military sci-fi novels to write.
For those who haven't
but
heard
I would say
Okay.
that there is another harem series that Heather and we have discussed working on.
That's a secret future project.
It
though.
is a secret future project. It's our lips are sealed, but there is something that we are contemplating working on in the future in our quote unquote copious amounts of free time.
That's like our we need to make a little con banner that says that. But yeah, in terms of stuff I'm working on, another thing I wanted to say, I am actively writing Monster Girl Tamer #2 right now. We are actually cutting that series short so that I can get to Titan Mage faster. So it's just going to be one more book, and I have already started posting the first chapters to Patreon. So if you want to read that early before it releases, I'm going to put the link in the chat. It's also in the show notes. Totally subscribe to the Edie Skye Patreon. I am currently editing Blood Knight 4, and once that edit is done, which will probably be, I'm gonna finish my read through this week. Blood Knight 4 will also be posted to the Patreon. So if you would like to read either of those before they come to Amazon, Patreon's a good place to do it. And there's also a bunch of other stuff. Like I just got in our book stock of Blood Knight 3, and so there's a tier where it basically, if you're subscribed to that tier of the Patreon, you automatically get signed books every time we release a new book. So there are big perks to that. But also we've got clean cover art. There's also just a whole bunch of polls and fun things that I run. There's a chat that's just for patrons, and there's even a tier that's like $1. So if you want to join, and just it's basically
it's the tip jar.
Yeah, and so yeah, there's the Patreon is super fun. That's actually
one of the things I'd like to just touch on, since Blood Knight 4 is up for pre-order.
Oh yeah, I need to put that link in the chat too.
It's Blood Knight 4 Portal of Gold. So we've been teasing, various things happening, and Blood Knight 4 is where the big revelations really start to hit.
Yeah. It's already, like, I'm not even 100 pages in yet, and there's already been a badass fight scene. Like, it's so fun. I'm loving it. And I mean, I know, like, I'm involved with the writing, so of course I'm going to think it's fun.
You know how it ends. I mean,
I know, but it's really fun to read. And it's like, even when I know what's going to happen, it's really fun to read. And we've got another good comment from John, who says that adding military to sci-fi is a whole other issue, because again, you're trying to tell the story but not get stuck in military jargon and hierarchy. Yeah, I totally agree with you, John. Military sci-fi is a whole other thing. There's a whole new level of complication. I do love military sci-fi, but there's a lot you have to keep up with, and it's also really easy to get it wrong if you don't have any personal experience with military hierarchy. And the people who have been in the military will know.
It is a demanding subgenre to write in.
Oh yeah. So, what you been reading, Jacob? Have you been other than Blood Knight 2? Have you been reading anything lately? You've mostly just been playing Helldivers.
No, I've been listening to Omniverse novels.
That's
just gonna be my thing for a while.
Yep, you've been catching up with all that. There's a
lot
of
in the process of absorbing and internalizing as much of that setting as possible.
Yeah.
It's a slow process, because there's a difference. It's a very distinct difference between reading a series as a fan and reading it as someone who has to write in this setting. And the latter is much more demanding, particularly with a setting that is as detailed and deep and just so complex. There's so much complexity, so many layers to it. It's wide, it's deep, it's complex, it's daunting, and yeah, I got to write in it. I have to write very well in it.
Yes.
So
You're up to the challenge.
That process is continuing.
All right. I have actually had a really, really productive reading month. So I have a list here. So I do a lot of, I knock out a lot of audiobooks while I'm out doing yard work, and I've been cleaning up my garden this month. So I've knocked out quite a few things. One that I just started is Antecedents Legacy by Daniel Shinhofen, which I totally started reading because heck yeah, giant robots. It's a giant robot book. And I will have to say it's a harem book, but it's not the kind of harem that I'm used to, because the harem element is kind of stealth. Like I want to say 1/3 of the way in, and it's still focusing on the plot, and I'm enjoying it. But I had to get used to that because most of the harems I'm accustomed to reading are like right up in your face, sexy from chapter 1. And it's kind of cool to read one that doesn't focus quite so much on that aspect of it, but is very much
the slow burn,
plot and world building and sci-fi. Yeah, I did have to get used to it, but I am liking it. And so that's one worth trying if you're trying to get your, it's not funny like Titan Mage is, but if you're trying to get a Titan Mage like fix with the giant robots, it's a good one. I'm also reading, there's a book I bought a while back by Zeta Star just called Grr. It's a romance, and it's about it's an alien romance, and the love interest, the main character just calls him Grr because she can't pronounce his actual name. I'm very, very early in that one too, but it's just I saw this hot chesty dude cover, and the title of the book was just Grr ! And I was like, yes, that is. I didn't even read the blurb. That is all I need. Like, I'm a really easy sell on ridiculous covers, you guys, and so I will report back with how fantastic that one is. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. I just finished Elemental Empire by Peter North, which is a kind of straightforward fantasy harem. And I really liked it, but I think the thing that made me like it most was I've been on an 80s dark fantasy kick recently. And halfway through the reading of this novel, I started picturing it as a harem, like an 80s dark fantasy harem by way of Jim Henson. And so all the monsters kind of have this dark crystal Jim Henson puppet look. Not the women, that'd be weird. But it's just, it was so, that made it like 10 times more fun than it already was. Like whenever I read books, I don't ever read the same book as anyone else because my brain always goes off on different tangents as I read. John asks, Grr like Invader Zim? The title is spelled like GRR ! Like a growling noise. But we actually need to rewatch Invader Zim. It's been too long since we've watched that. I've got a huge list here, but I've also started reading some stuff by Eden Red. I just finished Lewd Kingdoms #1, which has made me want to write a city building book so bad. It's really spicy too, but I just love the city building aspect. And then I just started My Girlfriends Are Pirate Elves. So I've got a whole lot of stuff that I'm like in the middle of right now. But yeah, so book life is interesting right now. Let's see, what you been playing?
Helldivers.
Have you mostly been playing Helldivers too? That's been the story of our lives for the past several months.
Yeah, they've released another balance patch, and the last 2 balance patches that they released over the past 2 months have been really, really healthy for the game. Mm-hmm. It's a lot more fun. The sort of sandbox that they've created in terms of the equipment, the stratagems and various weapons that you can take is just fantastic. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more. The changes encourage a lot more build variety and experimentation, which I really enjoy. Anyone in the chat who is familiar with the game, I have been trying out the Airburst rocket launcher. Those sessions have been as chaotic as you can imagine. And for those who aren't familiar, the Airburst rocket launcher basically fires a rocket that then explodes into kind of bomblets that then also explode everywhere. And it's one of my friends has referred to it as the friend killer 2000. It's really good at killing teammates.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good at friendly fire. Yes.
Well,
John in the chat says for democracy.
Well, one of the problems right now is that you'll fire this rocket and you'll be aiming, at something downstream, but it has a proximity fuse. And it will sometimes trigger on just random enemy corpses, of which, because of how many enemies you fight, there are a lot of those. And sometimes that corpse is like right in front of you, and your buddies are like to either side of you. So this cluster bomb explodes right in your face, and then you've just killed everyone. And then you hear the controller say, "Squad lost, deploying replacement squad."
Like as we get closer to the release of Arcane, I've been playing a lot more League of Legends stuff. Like I haven't been playing any other video games per se, but Legends of Runeterra is one of my favorite things ever. It's a real pity that it's kind of one of the lesser loved games by Riot Games, because it's a really, really good virtual trading card game. Like, it is so well designed, and for someone who really enjoys the art and lore of League of Legends, it's top tier, because it actually allows you to enjoy those things more so than the mainline game does. And I just love that game so much. But yeah, Arcane comes out next month, and I'm just gonna be absolutely feral for it, you guys. Like, I'm gonna be an entirely different person for 3 months after I watch this thing. And by the way, I think I haven't gotten it scheduled yet, but the next Authors Just Talk About is going to be a bunch of us nerding out over Arcane's. I think it's next weekend. I'll have to check. But be on the lookout for that if you are an Arcane fan, because that'll be going up soon. But let's see. What other question? What you been watching? Other than YouTube? What have we been watching? I can't remember.
We recently rewatched Conan the Barbarian.
Yes. Yeah, I was having a really bad day earlier this week, you guys. And Jacob has learned over the course of our marriage that there are two things that can put me in a consistently good mood. One is sushi, and the other is random Conan the Barbarian. And so we sat down and started Conan the Barbarian. And then I was having a good day, and so he was like, "Hey, Conan the Destroyer." And so we've been going through the Conan movies. But also, I do have to say, some couples ESP worked this week, because there was a period when the hurricane was happening, and the online posts about, "Oh my gosh, the government is using hurricane lasers," was a thing. And the two of us looked at each other, and a thought passed between us.
Oh my.
And we figured out that it was the exact same thought, because both of us promptly went to our nerd room and got Flash Gordon off the shelf. And in case anyone else was wondering, yes, Ming the Merciless does in fact have a hurricane laser, or at least a hurricane creator.
Well, he's got a hurricane button.
He's got a hurricane button in the opening scene. And so we've been watching Flash Gordon, and it's like, oh my gosh. You talk about sci-fi harems. I want to write a Flash Gordon harem so bad. Like, file the serial numbers off. But I'm going to be working in Titan Mage for the next several years once I get Monster Girl Tamer done. So JR asks, Schwarzenegger Conan or the reboot? We've been watching the classic one. I haven't seen the reboot yet, which it's got Jason Momoa in it, so I know I'm gonna like it. I just haven't. Yeah. Oh, and John says Hurricane Lasers sounds like a Eurobeat metal band. It kind of does. Like, I'd listen to Hurricane Lasers. Yeah. But yeah, all right. Well, I think it's 9:00, so I think it's just about time to wrap up. So let's see here. Thank you guys for joining us. As far as our cons are concerned, we tentatively have MarsCon coming up in January. All of this is dependent on Jacob's pain stuff and whether he can travel. One thing that is definitely on, though, on October 26th, we are going to be at the Tangled Web in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And we're going to be doing a group signing, reading, general hangout with David Weber and Jason Cordova, and then the two of us. So it's going to be a really fun evening. And that'll be posted. The information for that will be posted on our blog, on our newsletter. So you will find out about it. But yeah, so that's going to be super fun. But until then, I think that's it. You got anything else you want to add, Jacob?
I think we're good.
All right. Well, again, thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.